Chapter 296, Confessions. Wanna know what I think? Belle's thin, melodious voice burst forth as the girls began their walk. Her massive boobs jiggled with the way she walked, causing both girls to get distracted by the ongoing depiction of physics on her chest. I believe there's more to people than meets the eye. Everyone has their fair share of secrets and insecurities. This far, Trisha had shared hers, and even Alicia depicted how life wasn't as perfect for her as everyone thought. The only one left with a seemingly perfect persona was Belle. Even I have my fair share of them. They're just too embarrassing to share. Belle blushed a little as she spoke. Oh? Come on, tell us. Alicia prompted, a big smile on her face. You're curious too, right, Trisha? Me? Yes. Yes, I am. The two girls surrounded the shorter Belle and began to pressure her. She looked cute, like a small and innocent thing caught in the middle of bigger entities. Belle couldn't escape. Well. My chest is a good example. The eyes of the two girls subconsciously went to her milkers, once again seeing how big they were. They then turned to Belle for an explanation. It attracts too much attention. Every time, people stare at them. It can get a little. No, very uncomfortable, you know. Belle appeared exasperated, especially since none of the girls seemed to relate to her predicament. I can definitely see that happening. Alicia rubbed her chin. A lot of guys are scum. Belle turned to the ebony girl in their midst and asked, what about you, Trisha? You should have also noticed a lot of stares on your thighs and butt. Trisha looked a bit confused, but she shook her head. I mean, I don't think so. I tend to be immersed in whatever I'm doing, so I don't really notice most of those things. Besides, even if Trisha noticed people staring at her, she would think they were looking at her muscles. She never imagined that guys were sexualizing her. Wow. That's crazy. I never thought of it that way. Belle looked at the two girls like she couldn't believe what they were saying. For Alicia, she dressed modestly, so most of the attention she got would be her face. As for Trisha, she had insecurities with her body, so she didn't understand it when guys drooled over certain proportions that she had. That meant Belle was all alone in this struggle. Ha. It is what it is, I guess. She sighed. The girls patted her shoulders and head, and thanks to her shorter height, she couldn't possibly complain. She was like the baby in the group. Okay. Last question. The girls had bonded more than they could have ever imagined over the course of their journey together. It was crazy how much they had gotten to know about each other. They knew about Alicia's cats, as well as Trisha's crushes back in high school, even Belle's incident with a teacher in the past. Layers upon layers were exposed by the girls, and they were having a ton of fun with it. However, they had to end the rapid-fire questions very soon. And based on the roster, it was Belle's turn to ask the last question. Which guy are you most interested in at the moment? The question was directed at the entire group, which meant everyone was supposed to answer it. Based on the rules of the game, they all had to say their answer at the same time. This was to ensure that no one felt too shy to speak up. By talking over each other, it allowed all of them to blurt their answers out. And so, the moment of truth arrived. Ray. The unanimous answer was one person, much to the surprise of everyone in the group. Yet, all three of them gasped in shock. Hold on. Trisha is also interested in Ray. Belle thought to herself. She already knew Alicia liked Ray, which was why she asked the question. She never imagined that it would be a unanimous thing. As for Trisha, she looked at Belle in shock. Why would Belle also like Ray? From what she noticed about the girl, she usually hung around the inseparable trio Eric, Justin, and Clark. Out of all of them, Trisha had thought it would at least be Justin. No. Adonis has to be the better choice. Since Trisha trained with Adonis and Billy, she noticed Belle constantly coming over to converse with Adonis and even bring him meals. They seemed very close, but when Adonis was asked about if, he often made remarks like, "Belle is just my friend," or "She's like a sister to me," or even, "She reminds me of my little cousin back home." Trisha didn't know about Adonis' feelings, but she had always assumed that Belle had some kind of feelings for Adonis. And she wasn't the only one. Hold on. They both like Ray. Alicia's thoughts were in shambles the moment she heard their answer. When it came to Belle, Alicia always thought of her as someone who was interested in Adonis. She made it too obvious. As for Trisha, she had suspected her for a while, but after some time she concluded that she was just imagining things. As Ray told her, they were just friends. However, now that the truth had come to light, an awkward atmosphere took over the room. No one knew what to say to the other person. An uncomfortable silence just took over. Until Kraik. Boom. Several centipede monsters rushed from their tunnels and charged at the group. Many who saw this sudden attack would panic and be in distress, but it was the opposite for the girls. They were relieved by the assault. After all, they unanimously thought it was preferable to fade monsters than to continue with their conversation. That last question completely killed the conversation. Even after all the monsters were eliminated, no one said a word to the other any longer. They just silently marched forward. Asterisk. 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 Thanks for reading. Ha ha ha. This chapter cracked me up, not gonna lie. Sorry to bore you about girl stuff like this. Also, I hope this isn't leaning into the harem trope too much. Ray isn't some special protagonist or anything. They just have their specific reasons they like him, and it's not like he's gonna end up with all of them. Hope you didn't find the chapter too boring. Chapter 297, Confessions. Swish. Adonis' golden blade swept through the air as he nimbly sped across the area in a cast of brilliant light. Space around him became distorted as waves of energy flowed from his body. In a flash, he sliced up multiple centipede monsters and landed a finishing blow on the one wriggling at the end of the row. Boom! They all erupted, turning into chopped up forms of bug meat, roasted by the intense radiation that Adonis' attack gave off. Ha! Mist escaped his lips as he looked behind him to see the actions of his teammates. Billy was doing fine enough. He was using his to damage the centipedes and also trap them in a concentrated position, while utilizing his warrior concentrated skills to lend heavy blows and finish them off. None of them stood even a modicum of a chance. As for Ray, well. Hi. He slashed some of the several legs of the centipedes with his blade arm, while also blocking their attacks. He slowly chipped away at their strength, and right when they attacked and he blocked, he would go for a counter which involved slicing through their head, or cutting through their long torsos. Either way, he fought in a more strategic way. His major strength was evasion and defense, while striking at the perfect time. Unfortunately, his method was too slow. By the time Adonis and Billy were done with their part, he was barely getting started on his end. As a result, "Let me help you out, Ray." Adonis had to intervene. Whoosh. In a burst of golden light, Adonis appeared right behind the cluster of centipedes and cut down their numbers by a quarter with a single strike. Thanks, Adonis. Thanks to their numbers going down by a considerable margin, Ray had a lot more room to breathe. He gave more counters, and he was able to kill a lot more from his position. And so, Adonis kept chipping at their numbers from behind while Ray did so at their front. The event swiftly ended in the victory of the team. Their guardian undead, a mage-looking thing, merely watched them, not once having the opportunity to assist the team in their plight. After all, a majority of them were just that good. They were done with their round in no time. "Thanks for the save again, Adonis." Ray beamed as they began to walk side by side. Billy kept a considerable distance from the two and didn't utter a word, but he sometimes cast his gaze on them. He was clearly listening into what they were saying. "It's nothing, Ray. You did a good job with those monsters, though. I keep getting surprised by your incredible combat skills." Ray scratched his head as he laughed sheepishly. "Come on, don't patronize me." Adonis smiled and placed his hand on Ray's shoulder. His expression looked genuine as one could possibly be. "I would never do that. I'm only speaking facts." His smile broadened as he took a look at several portions of Ray's well-developed body. "You've really grown, Ray. You're a lot stronger than you were before. Your hard work is paying off, and I just want you to know that I can see that growth." Adonis hand tapped Ray's shoulders for a few seconds, almost the same way a big brother or an uncle would react if you told them some incredible news. For some reason, Adonis seemed much older than he actually was. "Thanks, man. Your hard work is also evident. You're really up." As soon as R made the statement, though, Adonis' bright expression darkened and he took his hand away from Ray's shoulders. He shook his head slowly and turned away. "No. Not really," Adonis whispered, almost to himself. He clenched his fist and looked at the ground in something akin to a defeated posture. "I still have a long way to go. Don't we all? We've not reached the full extent of our potential, right? So I see you growing even more." Adonis swiftly shifted his gaze to Ray, his face holding a look of pleasant surprise. "Unlike you, and even Billy, who are growing at an astronomical rate, I am just doing so at a slow pace." Ray clenched his teeth after uttering those words. "I know I can't ever measure up to you guys. It just feels a bit. I don't know how to put it." Adonis' eyes glistened, almost as if they were moist. He pulled closer to Ray and hugged him. The suddenness of his action caused shades of red to form on Ray's cheeks. It was so embarrassing. Even Billy had to look away from the awkward display that was happening right before his eyes. "You're fine, Ray. You don't need to be too bothered about all of this." His words came as a soft whisper, dancing into Ray's ears in a somewhat stimulating tone. I see." A bead of sweat fell from Ray's forehead as he began to look a bit uncomfortable. Unfortunately, Adonis could not see his face at the moment. "You've come this far already. So far, you have done great. I'm proud of you. For how far you've come." Adonis slowly stepped back, and Ray had to plaster a smile on his face so he wouldn't seem ungrateful for the goodwill from Adonis. "Ahem. Sorry. Just got a bit emotional there." Adonis cleared his throat. It seemed even he could sense how awkward he had made the entire atmosphere. Billy, of course, kept pretending that he wasn't invested in the conversation. It's fine. Ray strained his smile. Both of them looked at each other for a few seconds, their eyes absorbing the other's. It seemed like a staring contest that wouldn't end. Then, to be honest, neither you nor I compare to the true op guy. Adonis took a step back and looked at the mage-like creature who floated in the distance. Compared to him, I'm really nothing. Asterisk. 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 Thanks for reading. Man. I really like Adonis. Not in the way some of you think, though. Ha ha ha. Chapter 298, Confessions. The undead had the appearance of Lich from Legend, even having a crooked style to go with its aesthetic. However, since its face was mostly obscured, it was difficult to tell its true identity. Adonis cast a forlorn look on the summon, saying nothing for a moment. It forced Ray to speak. You mean the undead? The hero turned to give Ray a confused look, before bursting into a pleasant laugh that made his face appear even more handsome. Of course not, silly. I meant Sir Relix. For a second or two, silence radiated among the boys. Ray opened his lips to make an O sound as Billy slightly nodded in agreement. Compared to him, am I really that strong? Adonis chuckled as he shrugged. I'm not even confident in beating that undead that he summoned. Not unless I go all out. Ray's eyes widened in surprise. It was clear what was currently afflicting Adonis. Inferiority complex. To be honest, Ray. I don't even feel like a capable leader any longer. Whether it comes to strength or intelligence, he's ahead of me in every facet. Adonis gave a sad smile as he looked at Ray. I know I shouldn't be frustrated about it. It's for the greater good of mankind, but sometimes I just can't help but feel envious. It was difficult imagining Adonis being envious of anyone for anything at all. He was incredibly handsome, intelligent, powerful, and most of all, he was very kind. Everyone looked up to him. Yet, no one could deny that Relix was definitely more intelligent and powerful than any of the other worlders. No one knew what he looked like, but a lot of them expected to see an incredibly handsome man for some reason. But, if there was something Adonis had over Relix, it was his most attractive trait. You're a better person than he is. Ray declared with a straight face. What? Adonis looked stunned by the words he heard from Ray, but the latter didn't back down. Instead, he doubled down on his declaration. You're very kind, Adonis. Even back on Earth, and now here. You always put everyone into consideration and ensure we are fine. It was now Ray's turn to place his hand on Adonis' shoulder and smile. It's only thanks to you that we've been able to make it this far. As Ray uttered those words, Adonis' eyes began to grow moist. We aren't following Relix just because he is strong, you know? It's because you endorse him. What are you even saying, Ray? Adonis chuckled as he tried to dismiss the boy's words. However, Ray placed his second hand on Adonis' other shoulder and smiled fiercely at the boy. The reason we stayed behind wasn't just because of Relix. It is because we trust you, Adonis. Our faith isn't on the Royal Council or on Relix, but on you. Something like a spark began to glow from Adonis' eyes as Ray uttered those words. Really? A mixed look of relief and doubt played on the hero's face. It seemed like he wanted Ray's words to be true, but he didn't want to risk believing them. I don't know about others, but you're the reason I decided to stay behind. Because I trust you. I think it's the same for everyone else, at least to some level. I see. Ray patted Adonis on his shoulder, though his series of actions were weird due to the height gap between the two of them. They both pretended not to notice the awkwardness of Ray's actions, though, and only focused on the intentions behind them. Besides, if you think you're weaker than Relix, then there's only one thing you can do. Right? Yeah. I can just get stronger. Adonis clenched his raised fist. Ray broadened his smile and nodded at him. The two stared at each other, trapped in a world where time was still. Adonis began to look so emotional that it appeared as though he would hug Ray. The latter subtly pulled away, preventing it from happening a second time. Ahem. Ray cleared his throat as he awkwardly looked away. Adonis merely smiled at the awkward Ray and nodded slowly. Thanks for your words, Ray. They mean a lot more to me than you realize. Ray slowly turned to Adonis and shrugged, a bright smile on his face as well. Thanks as well. As they both chuckled, a certain someone clenched his fist and finally had the courage to utter his first words since they began their journey as a team of 3. I'm sorry. Both of you. Billy's barely audible voice echoed within the corridor, instantly sullying the moment between Adonis and Ray. They both looked at Billy, who was staring at the ground with a bitter expression on his face. I'm sorry for all I've done. Adonis. Ray. He slowly looked at them, tears slowly falling from his eyes. I know I have no excuse for how I acted, or how I treated you. I don't even expect you to forgive me or anything. His brows were crinkled upward and his lips trembled with emotion. It was clear that he meant every single thing he uttered. I shouldn't have abandoned you as a friend and let all that power get into my head. I shouldn't have gone that far with Ali. I mean, with everything that went down. Everything he said was greeted with silence. I won't ask for forgiveness or anything, but I'll try to be better. As those words reverberated in the air, someone began to approach him. It was none other than the hero. It's good that you've admitted your errors. It means you have properly reflected on them. Adonis placed a hand on Billy's shoulder and smiled at him with a warm demeanor. I won't speak for everyone and forgive you on their behalf. However, we're still young. Mistakes are inevitable, aren't they? Adonis. Billy's tears began to flow more. What matters is learning from them and growing. I'm happy I gave you enough time to yourself so you could fully understand your actions and their consequences. I thought you hated me and wanted nothing to do with me any longer. Adonis merely shook his head and cast a sympathetic smile upon the crying hunk of a boy. I was disappointed and reasonably upset. But I've never hated you, Billy. Ugh. An air of intense emotions wafted through the air, and while the two boys seemed locked in the moment, Ray felt a little uncomfortable in their midst. He looked at the undead, and it was clear that all the positive energy and overflowing emotions were also too much for the cold-hearted creature. They both just wanted it to end. You can be better. Redeem yourself with actions and not words alone. For it was your action that caused this to begin with. Once Ray returned his mind to the conversation, they were already rounding things up. Thankfully. You've made a great first step, Billy. Keep it up, man. We need you now more than ever. Why yes. I won't let you down. This isn't about me, Billy. It's about everyone else. It's about this world. I understand. Let's do our best together, okay? As Billy nodded at Adonis' wise words, the golden-haired hero turned to Ray. Ray swiftly returned his expression to a solemn one, and thus his eyes mirror the pure hero. Let's all do our best. What do you say, Ray? It was already obvious what his answer would be. I haven't completely forgiven you, Billy. I don't think I can ever forget your actions, but... He approached the duo with a bright smile on his face. I don't hate you either. To Ray, Billy wasn't even an issue worth considering. He was just someone that existed. I have more important things to worry about. You're necessary for this world's survival. I'm not so small. Minded that I don't recognize that. Ray struggled, but he was able to place his hand on Billy's shoulder. Adonis placed a hand on Ray's shoulder, and Ray did the same to him as well. Billy also did the same to both of them. At that moment, all three boys were in perfect understanding. They needed one another for the sake of the world. Nothing more. Nothing less. Ray was busy thinking about a bunch of things as this whole thing was going on that he failed to notice the smile Adonis gave him. It was one of utmost gratitude. His face clearly read, "Thanks, Ray. You really help out more than you realize." Adonis looked at both of his teammates and closed his eyes in satisfaction. He was truly happy. Asterisk. 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 Thanks for reading. What a wholesome chapter in total. I made it a lot longer than usual because I wanted to properly explore all of these emotions without any breaks. Did you think making up with Billy like this was the right choice? Do you think Billy didn't suffer enough for his actions? I want to hear your thoughts. Chapter 299, End of the second day's raid. I see. So this is what you meant, Ader. As Ray trailed behind Billy and Adonis, he had a hidden smile on his face. After their earlier conversation, the three hadn't spoken very much. In fact, it was mostly Billy talking to Adonis, and that was perfectly fine. However, something had definitely changed, and Ray could see it. We've gotten a bit closer. I understand the two of them a lot better. Billy most likely regretted what he did that led Alicia into such dangers based on his words and actions. It also seemed like he wanted to be a better person. I can't dismiss that he could be lying, but if I cross-reference what he said with his, then it's easy to see that he's telling the truth. Ray found it almost comical how detached he was to Billy when they had been the closest of friends merely months prior to this entire incident. I guess a lot can happen within such a short span of time. Barely 2 months had passed, and things had become this way. It showed just how fleeting experiences and human life generally was. In any case, Ader was right. This whole thing should prove beneficial to the whole group, and it helped satisfy my curiosity as well. Ray figured that a similar occurrence would have happened between the two other groups, and Ader would probably record all that information for him somehow. This is good. There was nothing better than a common understanding among members of a group for effective teamwork. I still don't fully understand how he was able to go about this and get this result, but I can make a few guesses. For one, by causing the atmosphere to be tense and pulling at certain heartstrings. He caused Clark and Justin to be the first to display some measure of emotion and reveal parts of themselves that they normally wouldn't. This lit a fuse that inevitably led to everyone else being more open and predisposed to sharing information given the right circumstances. The next thing he did was to divide us into groups that would increase chances of revealing said information. Justin, Eric, and Clark were close friends and they were boys, so it was a given that they would share deeper conversations with each other. Girls were also more prone to discuss personal things if left alone for a long period of time. Finally, placing the weakest of the group and the strongest in the same team made for a very compelling arrangement. Conversations were bound to occur. Since we're in smaller groups, it is easier for everyone to speak their minds. Also, the absence of relics in the groups allows everyone to be more comfortable. In the end, Ader planned all of this well. I'm impressed. Ray smiled as he increased his steps to gain more ground. Looks like the next round of monsters are incoming. Once the team concluded their journey through the corridors, they all converged at the exit point. Justin's group seemed as cheerful and optimistic as ever, while the girls looked to be the opposite of that. They had an awkward atmosphere among one another, though it didn't seem like they were on negative terms. Finally, Adonis' team arrived with a similar vibe as the first group. They were all smiling. Once Alicia saw Ray with Adonis' team, she rushed to him. As for Belle, she subtly made her way to Justin's group. Trisha also joined Adonis and Billy. Before anyone noticed, they were back to the status quo. Well done, everyone. I've been waiting. Relix appeared out of a distortion in space, his body covered in sheer darkness. His crimson eyes glowed and his magnificent robe flapped with the pressure of the energy he gave off. Glad to see you all in one piece. The other worlders shrugged. Sure, the centipedes were tough in the beginning, but after splitting up and fighting them they became relatively easier to handle. Nothing too special. It's time to challenge the boss. I hope you're all ready. The moment Relix said this, the looks on the faces of some people soured. They seemed to scream out no break. Unfortunately, Relix didn't seem to care about their feelings. None of them could even complain at all since they were on the clock. They still had 2 more floors to conquer. Congratulations, everyone. You did well. The other worlders beamed as they stood in the Royal Estate's open field. The second day was officially over, and once again, everyone had made reasonable progress in their levels. The average level was around a level 35, though outliers like Billy had a level of 39. Trisha was understandably in level 37, though Alicia already caught up to her and went a step further. She was in level 38 now. Belle was in level 35, the average for most of the other worlders to fall under. Justin was the lowest, as usual, with level 34, just 1 level shy of the expected number. Ray decided to boost his outward level to about 19, which he considered to be fair all things considered. As for Adonis, no one knew, but he was in level 69. He would have probably had a much higher level, but he was asked to sit out the entire boss fight for all the floors. In the end, all of them had grown reasonably stronger than they were at the start of the day. Tomorrow, we'll finally be putting that familiar of yours to use. Relix looked straight at Alicia and narrowed his gaze on the rabbit that she held. We'll begin the 7th floor with Snow trying her hardest to solo the floor. I want to see how she'll do as an offensive force on her own. What? Most of the other worlders were shocked, but Relix maintained his calm demeanor. It's not fair that you're the only ones who get to grow. Snow is still in level 1 because I made her sit back and let you all level up. In order to make things balanced, it was better to make certain floors exclusive to the Grand Summon so she could decently hunt and grow. Since she had incredible potential at just level 1, there was no debate as to her use if she could grow even stronger than normal. That's the end of today's announcements. Relix gave a slow nod at everyone and suddenly vanished from the open field. See you tomorrow. Asterisk. 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 Thanks for reading. I can't wait to see the growth of our dear Snow. I wonder how many stat points she'll get per level. Make a guess. Chapter 300, Reading Between the Lines. As Ray finished listening to the last recording of his classmates, he couldn't help but squirm a bit uncomfortably on his bed. After all, he had heard some pretty personal things from the girl side of things. I should have asked Ader to filter it. Ray definitely didn't need to learn about Belle's boob issues and Trisha's thick thighs. He felt especially bad because he was one of the boys who stared hard at those parts of the girls' bodies, and he now realized how much they disliked it. Alicia even called those who do it creeps. She basically called me a creep. Ray had never thought of it like that before, but he was now seeing things from a different light. On a more serious note, though, I can't believe all of these issues exist with them. Ray wasn't just thinking about the girls, but every single one of his classmates. It seems they all have issues that I never even thought about before. Ray never deeply considered what his classmates felt about being trapped in this new world, unable to return home. The way it seemed, most people had given up on returning to Earth. According to Seraph, we would have died anyway. So what's the point? Still, he felt like Alicia was a special case for seeking a way to return home. I never expected there to be others. Justin wants to return home, and even Clark wants to do so if he can take his superpower with him. There could be a few others among the girls, as well as in his own group, who shared the same sentiment. That's important to know. As he rubbed his chin, a thought came to him. It was a fleeting one, but it appeared regardless. Would I ever get an ability that allows me to cross realities? Is it possible? As he mumbled these words, he noticed a slight movement in front of him. I forgot I wasn't alone. Ader was floating right in front of him in his same seated posture. He was waiting for Ray's review of the entire plan. No doubt. Good job, Ray said as he set aside his other thoughts for a separate time. I can now understand them a lot more. All thanks to you. It was all due to Ader's actions and thorough planning that he was able to naturally learn a lot more about his teammates, and also ensure they bonded in a sense. The plan wasn't completely effective on the girls, unfortunately. Would you like me to try again? As Ader brought that topic up, Ray felt his cheeks flush in embarrassment. Memories of the girls and what they said at the very end of their conversation struck him. Which guy are you most interested in at the moment? The response the girls gave to that question was forever etched in his mind. They're all interested in me? For real? Ray didn't think he could believe it. If it wasn't that Ader recorded it, he would have thought someone was pulling some kind of prank on him. Well, maybe the interest they mean is just simple curiosity. Ray realized he had stood out in a few ways, so it was possible for the girls to find him interesting. Plus, he was the supposed weakest, so that made him unique in his own way. But why would they all give such a unanimous answer? They could think of a couple more reasons, and one of them was the influence of a particular girl among the group. Belle. She was definitely up to something. Ray noticed Ader nodding in front of him, but he was too engrossed in his thoughts to properly pay him any mind. Did she say my name in order to get on Alicia's mind? Then what of Trisha? She probably meant it innocently. That leaves Alicia. Ray's cheeks turned even redder the moment he thought of Alicia. His racing heart doubled in speed, and he felt like he would have a heart attack just thinking of the possibilities attached to her words. To be honest, if they all liked me that way, I don't know what I would do. He found Belle to be completely out of the option and entirely disturbing. I still think she's just trying to cause trouble with Alicia. Seeing that she was the one who asked the question, it was also clear that she did everything on purpose. Ray didn't even want to think of her in that way at all. As for Trisha, I don't know. It was still more likely that Trisha was simply curious rather than romantically attracted to him. What do I know about romance, though? Haha. The one he desperately wished to be true was Alicia's confession. I like her, so if she likes me, maybe I can finally confess or something. Doing so would mean he would reveal his identity as Relix, but Ray didn't think it would make too much of a difference. Alicia doesn't like Relix too much, sure. But if I explain everything to her, I'm sure she'll understand. Right. He still wasn't sure, and his heart was pounding abnormally. I probably shouldn't think about it too much. At least, not right now. It would be stupid for him to try anything during such a pertinent period in their training and growth. Maybe after the raid is over. Ray had a nervous smile on his face, but his face was lit with some kind of excitement. I can't wait. I have a question, Master. Ader interrupted Ray's thoughts, causing the boy to look up. Yeah? What is it? You could have easily controlled them to do your bidding and reveal everything about themselves. So why didn't you? Ader's concerns about the most efficient route remained, and based on his beast mindset, it was clear that Ray had chosen the effective method. I know what you mean. I could have gotten even more information from them, and I could have also made them get closer without any need for the organic process. Ader nodded and waited for his master's reasons. Ray simply chuckled and shrugged, collapsing his back on the soft bed. I still operate under the bounds of my moral restraints, Ader. Closing both of his eyes, he smiled to himself. There are lines I don't cross. Asterisk. 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 Yai. We've reached 300 chapters. It's so crazy how this book is just a bit over 2 months old and I've already written so much. Thank you all for your constant support. I wouldn't have come this far if not for you, dear reader. If you've made it this far, then wow. I'm guessing you really like the story? That makes me happy indeed.